All right, I am happy to be joined with Matt Hawkins, the managing director and founder of Entourage Effect Capital, which is one of the leading private equity firms in the U.S. cannabis industry. How are you, sir?
I'm great. Yourself?
Excellent. We were talking off camera, based out of Dallas, Texas. Did you survive, I guess, this winter this year? It's crazy, the weather that you guys experienced down there.
It was nuts. We didn't have power for 3 days, and but use an excuse to bunk up with friends and
Yeah.
have a good time. Yeah, so all good.
Yeah, good stuff. Well, we want to get you on, obviously, this cannabis industry garnering tons and tons of attention. To begin this year, we saw a record amount of activity in terms of money raised in the U.S. cannabis sector. Although that activity has slowed down as we wind down here in the first quarter, what kind of activity do you think, or what we can expect as the Democrats look to push for federal cannabis reform?
Yeah, it's for those of us that have been investing in the space. For us, we've been investing since 2014, and so this is the
Wow.
first time we've experienced the tailwinds like this, because it's a race. It's a race to see how many uh, large scale deals can be put together. It's a race to build scale within your own portfolio, and with the 66 investments we have, that's what we're focused on, along with new investments in advance of legalization, which is going to occur.
Yeah. And you think, I know a lot of people are hoping for change. Democrats now controlling the Senate, new administration in. You've been in it since 2014. Does this feel different from, say, the U.S. hemp bill that was passed a couple years ago? If so, why do you believe it has changed?
Well, it's entirely different. The hemp bill, was the farm bill, which allowed the production and the growth and production of hemp in the states where they allowed it, which effectively made CBD legal. But
Yep.
CBD obviously isn't the psychoactive part of the plant like the THC is, and the irony is that the without the guidance that the FTC and the FDA need to provide,
Right.
CBD space is even more convoluted than the THC space, and the THC space is the one that's illegal. So
I
it's
know.
it's really it's quite amazing, because we don't really play on the CBD side because of that very reason. Until there's guidance given by the federal agencies that now oversee it, you're risking getting a product on the shelf that gets yanked because it made the wrong claims.
Are you seeing a lot of reform and change happening and occurring? Because this is a $22 billion industry as far as CBD is concerned by next year.
Yeah, it's a. I mean, look, there's no doubt about it that CBD is going to be a big player in the industry, and it already has become that. But the reality is that when THC is legalized, it's going to become even bigger, because
Yep.
it's really the interaction between the two products that give it's where we got our name. I mean, it's the entourage effect
Yeah.
of the combination of the THC and CBD that give the real, true medicinal benefits
Yeah.
to the end user.
Matt, Senator Majority Leader Chuck Schumer recently said that federal cannabis legalization is a priority of his as far as legislative agenda in 2021. Do you envision a safe banking type bill will make it to Senate? And if so, like, how do you position, I guess, your investments for a shifting regulatory environment?
Sure. Well, I just actually got a text not too long ago saying that it looks like the Safe Banking Act is going to get across the floor of the House again, just as soon as tomorrow. I don't know if
Wow.
that's accurate or not, but it just shows you the speed in which the Democrats are moving some of these things forward. The Safe Banking Act actually has been passed by the House once
Yeah.
before, and I think it'll pass the Senate very easily. What I don't anticipate is anything on the removal of uh, the illegality of the plant to be done this year, maybe even next year. And the truth of the matter is that's okay with us, because
Yeah.
we want to continue to, like I said, build that scale in advance of the legalization, which will happen, within 2 to 3 years versus 4 to 5 is what I would have told you this time last year.
Well, when you talk to the investment base, and if the safe banking bill gets passed, this is something that a lot of investors have been waiting for a number of years and are pretty excited. It's almost like Cowboys fans in Dallas waiting for the next Super Bowl, right? But this is something that people are highly anticipating, very excited about. In the event that does pass, what does this landscape look like?
Well, there's a likelihood. I don't know if it's high, but I think there's a likelihood that the New York Stock Exchange and the Nasdaq would open up to plant touching businesses if the Safe Banking Act is passed. And if
Which is
that
huge.
happens, it's huge. And if that happens, then obviously institutional capital will flow into you'll have companies that are listed on the CSE right now uplist to the Nasdaq and the New York
Correct.
Stock Exchange, and then you'll have you know the multi-state operators and other larger companies that are in cannabis that will be flush with cash due to the institutional investment. Market caps will go way up, and buying power and multiples will therefore increase down the food chain. And that's where us as private investors will benefit.
Yeah, for sure. Right now, average daily is around 30 to 40 million in trade volume amongst the big four MSOs on some of the smaller exchanges in Canada, anticipating anywhere to 3 to 400 million daily trade volume if they're uplisted on the NASDAQ and the New York Stock Exchange. And last week, we were speaking with Jason Ackerman from Terrascend, and he believes we're barely even at the first inning with the overall landscape of where this industry is headed.
I couldn't agree more. And, we're investors in Terrascend, love Ackerman. He's one of the smartest guys, one of the smartest operators in the space.
Yeah.
But his opinion is no different than that of Ben Kovler's at GTI or Boris Jordan at Curaleaf. And they all know that like all of us that are in the game right now realize we're, this is early innings.
Yeah.
No doubt about it.
As we, I guess, as we know, one of the biggest disadvantages for the U.S. cannabis industry is the IRS revenue code Section 280E, which prevents businesses from deducting ordinary business expenses, income from, sales associated with Schedule 1 or Schedule 2 substances. So in the event a bill like safe banking is passed in the Senate, how do you think, I guess, the IRS will reconcile, I guess, the loss of tax revenue if cannabis is indeed rescheduled away from a Schedule 1 or Schedule 2 classification?
Well, again, the Safe Banking Act isn't going to reschedule it yet. I think, but it is a step to a step. I doubt very seriously that the Safe Banking Act would change the landscape on the federal taxation front. But it needs to happen. I mean, what I always say is that this is a transformation of a market, not a creation of one.
Mm-hmm.
No one really understood the magnitude of the illicit market, at least I think globally, but in particular the United States. And as a result, there is this huge, probably 60% of the market is still operating in the gray or the illicit market right now.
Right.
And so the only way to convert that is to regulate but not overtax, and do that both at the national and at the state level. The federal government's still going to get their share, but they're going to have to be smart about doing it, and also push the states to be smart too, in California namely, to not overtax it.
Where are we in the state of California when looking at the landscape? On paper, lucrative opportunity, but it can be a confusing market. You've made some notable, obviously, investments, but where are we right now as far as opportunity within the California market?
Well, we are. There's some investors who just won't touch the state. We're the exact opposite. We just felt like it's. The market's larger than the entire country of Canada. It's the largest market in the world, and so we'd be fools not to try to find the winners there. And so what we're doing, and in fact, I'm the chairman of a company called Harborside, which is a single state operator, and we are uniquely positioned to become one of the preeminent single state operators in California. And once we get to a point to where we've kind of ironed out the kinks with regulatorily in the state, then I'm gonna go knock on Ackerman's door, and I'm gonna go knock on Ben's door, and we're gonna try to partner with an MSO at that point to either take us out or become their California operator. And so that's kind of the strategy there. But individually, we're also investors in the largest gummy brand in Thunderstorm. We're the largest, one of the larger investors in the number one pre-rolled company in Colorado, in California, Sublime.
Right.
And so those are really interesting, attractive private companies that have the ability to build scale, outside the public markets.
Big opportunities to say the least. Your firm, Entourage Effect Capital, as you said earlier, was an early stage investor, public companies that now public, I should say, but prior to that, it was companies like Acreage, GTI, Ebbu. You've indicated obviously interest in the California market. Is there any other states, I guess, that you have your eyes set on, and potentially most notably New York, knowing that it inches
Sure.
closer to legalization?
I mean, think about, even what's so funny is that in 14 and 15, when we started this, we didn't even have California.
I
And
know.
so now you've got California, Arizona, Nevada, you've got, New Jersey, and Florida has its robust medicinal
Virginia, like
platform.
Illinois, Michigan. It goes
Illinois,
on and
Michigan,
on.
Ohio, the list goes on. But so point being is the Midwest and the Northeast, Massachusetts. I mean, the Midwest and Northeast is too large to ignore, and the deal flow that we're seeing because of our longevity in the industry the fruits of our labor are paying off because people want us in their capital stack because of what we bring. We bring experience. We bring not only cannabis expertise, but operating expertise and private equity experience. But the relationships that we have are just,
Yeah.
we're so fortunate to have done this and been successful early on that it's a huge value add in addition to the capital that we bring.
What do you think back in 2014? Everybody thought could be an incredible opportunity, but saying and doing are two different things. But what was it that actually made you commit? Because here we are, 7 years later, great relationships formed, and it appears now that we are now starting to crystallize and see the true opportunity that's at hand.
I just, I've always, in my private equity days, I've always been a bit entrepreneurial with the types of vehicles that I put together to exploit. And, I had a private lending fund in the downturn.
Yep.
And then when 14 hit, I started seeing more, and I had an exit from another multifamily platform. Got back into private lending as let's see what's out there, and started seeing deals from warehouse owners in Denver looking to refinance their mortgages out of commercial debt into private debt so they could then lease to cannabis growers.
Yeah.
And my luck and timing moment was that while the yields were great and we actually made a loan, I just had a premonition that those yields would dry up, but the private equity opportunity would remain within cannabis, a chance to be a first mover. And so you can only imagine trying to raise money in Dallas, Texas in 2014 in the cannabis space. People looked at me like I was crazy. But
forget 2014, even 2021.
Fast forward to now, we've got, like I said, we've made 66 investments out of a number of different funds and special purpose entities.
So you just got done saying you're based out of Dallas, Texas. A lot of people look at an incredible state, 30 million people, lucrative opportunity. But is there more to the story that maybe people don't understand?
Yeah, I really believe that we will have a federally legalized landscape, or quasi-legally, to where like maybe the States Act will pass to where all the states can decide what they want to do, but just without the federal illegality overhang. That will come into play before Texas legalizes it. And the reason is that there's just the base here in Austin is at least in the state house at the Capitol is just too conservative. They for whatever reason, even though they're all fiscally conservative, there's some pandering to the far right, I'm afraid, where they can't see the benefit of taxing and regulating this and taking advantage of the revenue that's just sitting there waiting to be exploited and brought in. So I don't get it. I really don't.
Yeah, I was going to say, what do you think of that? Does it surprise you still?
Yeah, it's just not commonsensical, and I think what the state, while it's still a red state, is clearly has moved towards the center, and I think in a good way. And when you do things like this, and gambling's another thing, it's just not going to happen here. And the life of me, especially on the heels of a pandemic, we just had this damn grid issue as well. I mean, why not get some revenue in here to have more money for events like that occur? And I just can't get my arms around it. I wish I could.
Yeah, some things I guess can't be answered, but one thing's for sure that many people here in the cannabis industry, it just takes time. And I think people begin to change because, as you probably have seen in 2014, 7 years ago now, and if I were to ask you, what do you think is the biggest difference between what was going on 7 years ago to now? If there's one thing that you could point out, what would it be?
Um, the acceptance, without a doubt. I mean, and I use my own experience as a barometer for that. I mean, the same people that looked at me like I was crazy in 14 are now looking to invest with us.
Yeah.
And you look across the nation, and I think the numbers are, I think 1 out of every 3 Americans live in a state where it's recreationally legal.
Yep.
And over 50% of Americans live in a state where it's medicinally legal.
Mm-hmm.
So it's undeniable. And not only that, but you have, people are just using it more often and more openly. It's becoming an alcohol replacement. And all these states that decriminalized it. I mean, there's just, it's undeniable.
Mm-hmm. Moving forward, if you're an investor looking at this space, and there are a lot of investors right now that are interested, what are trends that they should look for the remainder of 2021? And, if the message I'm getting from you, just like every other CEO that I'm speaking with from different companies, there's good times, even though there's a lot of hurdles to get over. There's great times ahead for this industry.
Yeah, I mean, you're spot on. I think the things to look for are at the highest levels, M&A activity is going to continue. You're going to see some consolidation in some of the private ranks as well. You're going to see a lot of talk and conjecture about the timing of all the stages and the steps to legality.
Yep.
But at the end of the day, just like I've been saying, we're going to be building scale behind the scenes with our companies and the companies that we invest in to be able to take advantage of the fact that when the big boys enter this, we're going to hopefully be recipients of those checks.
Well, actually, before I let you run, I did want to ask you one last question. Being an early investor in cannabis, so you're taking a lot of big chances, but lucrative ones too. Any other industries such as the psychedelics, or you mentioned gambling before, sports betting, because those seem to be polarizing industries as well. Crypto seems to be like incredible right now, but is there any notable industries that have really gathered your attention recently?
Truth of the matter is I'm too busy to focus on anything else, but I will say this, we obviously have our eyes on psilocybin and the other psychedelics. It's really not for us. We're so squarely focused on the opportunity for legalized cannabis.
Yep.
That's where we spend all of our time.
Focus on one thing and do it really, really well, correct?
Hope so. That's right.
Yeah. Well, listen, I appreciate your time. I don't know if you're a Cowboys fan or not, but go Cowboys. But really, obviously great to connect with you and provide some insight. Yeah. Let's keep in touch and we hope to have you on again soon.
All right, buddy. Take care.
All right. Thanks, man.